Well, this is an awkward position to put myself in. Let's talk about Alyssa Slotkin chastising Bernie Sanders of his use of the word oligarchy. Now, I think it's important to say this. I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on a lot of different things, but when he speaks about there's a small group of people who have basically purchased the United States government to screw over the rest of us, this is undoubtedly true. And you should agree with this whether you're a Republican or Democrat. I remember watching the Republican primary. If you want to know my personal choice of candidates in that group, I was hoping for Chris Christie. But I also respect our democratic process, and Trump won. You know who doesn't respect our democratic process? The senior leadership in the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer handpicked this woman. And what's a little scary of the vibes I'm getting from this CIA spook? Is she like President Obama, who talks about rule of law and separate co-equal branches of government? And if she becomes president, God forbid, is she going to be like Barack Obama? She was a former advisor to George W. Bush. You like to talk about being someone who's for the rule of law. And secretly, I think some of these Democrats who would rather talk about the economy rather than Kilmar Garcia's situation is, once we're in charge, we're going to do our own blatant violations of the Constitution. Yeah, Bernie, stop talking about that oligarchy that completely screwed you over back in 2016 and then did it again in 2020 because the real owners in charge don't like hearing this. Now, I think if you're someone who's of the left or the right, we can all agree that people are purchasing the U.S. government. Now, how we get money out of U.S. politics is an open question. Libertarians would say the U.S. government is too powerful and it should not be able to pick winners and losers in the marketplace. People who are more left-leaning would say we need to have some limits on how much you can donate to politicians. I don't know the real solution to this, but I agree with Bernie Sanders when he says, is it really democracy when any of these oligarchs could spend massive amounts of money and tilt the scales on who they want to be in power? And also, I think it's important to be said, the oligarchs did not want Trump to be president. It's kind of funny to see them spend all this money and then in the end get screwed, because if they have a profit incentive in controlling the most powerful person on earth, whether that's George Soros and Elon Musk, it would be illogical to not buy the U.S. government. So partially, I can't even blame these billionaires for buying the U.S. government after that disastrous Supreme Court decision saying that money is political speech in this country. So even though I don't agree with Bernie Sanders, and I felt that he kind of betrayed his voting base when he endorsed Hillary Clinton back in 2016 because they saw Donald Trump was such a threat, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz lost her job because it was proven that she was not impartial in that election. And then in 2020, everyone just coalesced behind Joe Biden. So the Democratic Party has a rich history of shoving their candidates down our throats. And then they tried to do it in this election cycle with Kamala Harris. And now they have egg on their face. And then they look left and right and say, why did we lose? Because you guys are complete frauds. The Democratic Party hates democracy. And just because I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on a whole host of issues, quick side note, I think part of it is Bernie Sanders is a good guy. He's not ruthless enough to be president, because as president of the United States, you had to make the call to unalive people frequently. But I don't trust Alyssa Slotkin in that position either.